Okay, good evening, sisters and brothers. We're going to just do probably more talking here than anything and discuss some heavy topics that those of us who have put the effort into the climb, we know many of the answers to some of these, you know, really deep questions that Christianity has asked repeatedly over the centuries, over the decades, centuries, and millennia, and really have failed to answer them. And it says when the Lord arrives, you want your answers prepared. Actually it means you want to do your work ahead of time. That means not relying on those on the pulpit to give you made up answers. It means going in and parting the admixture of lies yourself. It means to rightly divide the word. There's a reason why it's stated that way. And we discovered on this channel what that was. And it's only for those who has a sincere heart for the truth, not for the liars who's pretending that, truth matters and Jesus is the only way and blah, 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 and can't be bothered to actually go in and study what it was warning you about. And we've already understood the 666. We know it began with Saul. Actually, we know it began with Nimrod. We know it began with Adam, the first accuser, whose real name is Satan, who of course, exalted himself to her throne. So that brings me to the new topic that we're going to look at, and something that I've been thinking about just barely today. And today is the 19th of December. I just happened to stumble over it, and for some reason, it just kind of was there. And that's the way the Spirit tends to work with me. And it's throne. It's throne, this word throne. And it was just brought to my mind that I had found that word throne in Job. And then I began to realize when I pulled that verse up in Job, we're going to look at it right here, right now. Three of them, as a matter of fact. And we're going to show you this figurative language and allegorical language, which is the spiritual language of God. And if you can't put the time into it, then you're not going to have the answers. That's how it's going to be. So for those who's been here in this climb with us, here we go. We're going to go. I hope this stays there as I go out here. Okay, so it should stay there. Okay, so we're going to begin in Job 26, and we're going to pick it up in verse 9. So bear with me as we move between the sexes, male and female, because there is multiple ways of taking it, and we've realized that in our climb. So in verse 9, it says, He covers the face of the full moon. And indeed, He does, spreading over it His cloud of witnesses. But what we recognize is they're really supposed to be her nations, not His. So He indeed does cover the face of the full moon, spreading over it His cloud. So what did that just really tell us? What did we realize cloud meant? So we have to go back into our studies. The cloud follows the one that is brought before the Ancient of Days, this cloud of witnesses. Cloud is nations, right? When we did I forget what they call it, but when you break the full meaning down of either the letters or the numbering in original Hebrew of that word cloud, it means nations. All right. So it sounds like there's nations on the full moon. That's what it sounds like. We get the verses in Obadiah 1. He exalted himself amongst the stars to her throne. We know that. He took possession of her throne. Isaiah chapter 14. He exalted himself to the Most High, to her throne is what we discover. Wisdom's throne, and then the daughter's throne, that the host does actually come out of her womb. It also takes us back to the verses in Isaiah 52. Take the yoke, the law system of man-made religious lies and laws. He has caused the nations to shake. at his religious lies and laws. He's put a yoke because he took the law system from her, and it did belong to her. She's called the creator in the Old Testament, the one that forms and creates and gives life. No man does this, but he sure gave himself all the credit. And so what does this tell us? He covers the face of the full moon, spreading over it his cloud. He has inscribed a horizon on the face of the waters at the boundary between light and darkness. The foundations of heaven quake, astounding or astounded at his rebuke. It was in the beginning, and it wasn't a rebuke, it was an accusation. Then that takes us to Psalm 55. She says, you thought I was a man just like you, but now I'm going to set the case in order, Adam. That takes us back to the controversy of Zion, he who divided the pleasant land. The daughters went into this harlot spirit who would produce nations, clouds of witnesses that would put this 666 in your head, this doctrine of man in your head that's got you bowing to a made-up God, a made-up male idol God that's going to deliver you. We discovered that. 666. We know what that means. It means the doctrine that you're stamped with in your head. And it takes us back to men like Nimrod, King Solomon, Sennacherib, and Nebuchadnezzar. Those were the names that we kept circling around and found it that that's exactly who was responsible of bringing in play this doctrine of man as God. And we explained it all out. Yeah, the Holy Spirit's witnesses is here, but you don't want to hear them. And you were told that you would not want to hear them. And yet you all think you're hearing them. You won't hear them. Your ears are stuffed up with a lie. You've hardened your neck to the truth to even wanting to weigh up the answers, the studies. You don't even want to do that. You don't want to listen. You don't want to see. You've hardened your hearts, and you have too much pride. Men especially. Women, I don't know what their game is. I can't figure women out. These women who will sit there and go, well, it's the truth. It's the truth. Have you thought? Do you got a brain? No, right. I forgot you don't. He's your head. You're too busy letting him be on the pulpit, and you're listening to every lie out of his mouth. He's called the accuser, man, Satan. And this brings us back to Satan's seed against the woman's seed. This is the cloud here that is currently covering the full moon, the face of the full moon. So he has inscribed a horizon on the face of the waters at the boundary between light and dark. You know what that takes me to? You turned everything upside down. That takes us to the upside down. What's that in Stranger's Thing? I've been watching that. The upside down. That's what this made me think of. The upside down. You turned everything upside down, and you told the potter. Another name for the potter is the creator and the maker, she. And you told her that she had no power over her own cloud, her own witnesses that comes out of her womb, her own nations. And the law was to come off of her tongue. We're told that in Proverbs chapter 1. And she says, I will laugh at you in the day of your calamity. You can't listen or be bothered to hear anything that I have to say, and yet I'm the one that creates life on this planet. And we go back to Uriel in the book of Ezra, second Ezra. I forget what it's called. I think it's a second Ezra. In the Apocrypha. And Uriel says, how can I tell you how the heavenly things works when you don't even know how your earthly things work? You think Daddy gave life to everything. How can I possibly speak of heavenly things? You're still archaic in your thinking. You just wouldn't get the truth, and you don't. You're stamped with 666 in your forehead, man's doctrine of man as God. And you're pumping out the nations for it, to back it. You're feeding them to the beast is what you're doing. The beast system, the animal system, takes us back to what Nebuchadnezzar did. And God says, I'll cut the kingdom away from you, and you will become the animal that you are and that you think like. And you will have no kingdom. And currently they don't. You don't have no kingdom. You don't. But you could have had one. But you know what he did? He spread his hands out and he says, look at all that I created. Nebuchadnezzar did that. And the watchers, the ones who were awake, decreed that it should be cut away from him. And so it was. But we have a throne here, right? That gets removed from the daughter of Zion, the branch of the mother, the branches of the mother, the righteous daughters who spoke the truth, who died with it on their tongue in the past because they wouldn't listen. And she says, sitting between other wise women, I think, is your understanding, not cherubim. She says, the children have come to the birth, but there is not strength to deliver. Now, why do you think she said that? Because it was a man sitting there? And because women had nothing to do with this creation and forming it and giving life to it? No. She was telling you something. These women are falling for lies and they are creating nations and feeding these children to this beast system of liars. And they have so much pride. They are so full of pride. They got the brass to crawl up on that pulpit and tell you they're your head, and you believe them. I just don't get you. I searched for the truth. I was looking for somebody who would speak it, who would at least have another perspective. And just about every time I pulled a video up, Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus this, Jesus that. You were warned about making male idols in Daniel 2, and you still can't let him go. You still can't let him go. The man's representation is supposed to be a righteous son that is equal to the daughter. And mother sees fit to do that to her children. Father, however, decided he was going to lie his backside off. And he did. He lied and he accused the woman, is what he did. So he could gain control over her law system and over her house. That's why you have Satan's seed against the woman's seed. But whatever. Don't reason it out. It would hurt you. Your pride. It would hurt you. And you were warned that when the true witnesses of the Holy Spirit showed up, that you would not be able to hear it because you would fall into this net, this snare, this ditch that they laid for you a long time ago. And you would have trouble finding your way out of it. And indeed you have, and you do find people having so much trouble letting Jesus and Father go off of their tongues. You do. They just can't let it go. And you were warned. And you were warned. And you've been being warned. And you're not hearing. You refuse to hear it. That pride. And what does it say? The foundations of heaven quake, astounded at number one, his rebuke. It wasn't his rebuke, his lie and his accusations. He actually perjured himself in the courts of heaven, is what he actually did. He's been doing it for a long time. As mother patiently waits for her daughters to hear from the Spirit again that resides within us to begin to speak the full truth that they don't want to hear, of course. So we get her in Psalm 55, actually setting the case in order and rebuking his lie that he told from the very beginning. And so that takes us to the Koheleth, which is the female assembler. I think if I have a role, I probably feel more closely aligned with that role than I do with any other role in the Bible. I don't feel so closely aligned with Shiloh. I maybe feel a kinship with my sisters in the sense that we are the remnant that comes from Shira, our kinswoman, and her waters and her laws. But I feel more closely aligned to the Koheleth when I read that you search out, you find the proverbs, and you set them in order. And you try to teach knowledge and you try to teach understanding that has been given to you. I mean, you can choose to hoard it to yourself, or you can choose to share it. I chose to share it because when I found it, I was I was so cheered by it. I was so happy that I had found another path, the right path. And I had that, it was continually um, reinforced by the Spirit leading me in that direction. There's no other way around it. It was the Spirit leading me. But if I feel like I have a role or a position in this, it's definitely got to be the Koheleth that I feel the most inclined towards. I don't think I said that right, but that she sets the proverbs in order. She seeks out and searches out. That's what I've been doing. I've been seeking out and searching out, and I've been setting them in their proper place. And I've been reasoning and I've been pondering them. And that's what we were instructed to do. And so I feel close to that. So that's the rebuke that comes in Psalm 55, the Spirit. And that Spirit rebukes at the end, which is why they hate the witnesses of the Holy Spirit. That's what this is. It's the witness of the Spirit. It's not Elijah and Moses, right? It's the Spirit's witnessing. And the glory that gets established in the earth is the daughters. Now, they don't want to hear that. No. And we've been all over it. We've studied it for years. We get some on here, they'll come in, they'll take their little digs. And I kind of laugh to myself and I'm like, never watched any of my videos, did you? Because they just can't be bothered. They don't got the time. They'll just come up with something that they've read somewhere else, listen to a man off the pulpit and decide, hey, I like that argument. I'm going to say it, but then got no foundation to back it up. None. We've went in and we've rightly divided the words. That's what we've done. And we were instructed to do that. And there's going to be a great hate on you when you do that. They're going to hate you for it. So the foundations of heaven quake, astounded at her rebuke. She says in Psalm 55, you thought I was a man just like you. Now I'm going to set the case in order, Adam. You who accused me, your mother's daughter, you accused me. So we find the mother's daughter in Song of Songs 6:9. All right? It's the Spirit growing within us. It's not just me. Hopefully, it's not just me. It's many of us. Starting to understand that we were designed for a particular purpose and it wasn't the one that he said off of the pulpit that allowed him to boast himself in pride, in arrogance. You know how much arrogance and pride it takes to say you're somebody else's head? And that you'll do her thinking for her, because that's basically what these boys said, and that you're his rib. I'm not your rib. I am not made in Father's image. I am made in Mother's image, and it's Mother who made me, just like she made you. Oh, but that hurts to hear, doesn't it? It does. So what's full moon here? It's interesting that they said full moon, and that in Obadiah 1, we get him that moves amongst the stars out there. So we get the full moon covered over with his cloud. His nations are covering the full moon. When the full moon is there, right, you've got the pull of water, you got the pull of tides, don't you? So there's this sense that as the moon fills up, right? It's filling up full of water. And usually when it's holding water, they'll say it's like this. And when it's pouring out water, it's tipped that way. And it's pouring out water, right? When it's full, it's holding water. Now, when we look at the word for full moon here, it's going to take us to 3678, and it's going to say throne, seat, or chair. It's the moon, and the man is the sun. Well, that's not completely true. Not when we understand what we're reading in the Bible, and most don't, right? They just grab onto these lies of her divide and cast down, takes his lies and yokes off of her neck and takes back her throne of power. We see him falling off of it. And they say, is this the man? Man. Called Lucifer back to the false light. The false light, where he takes her throne of power, the moon, here, identified as a throne, a seat, a chair, official seat. He exalted himself there. You understand what it just told us in figurative language. It appears to be real nations occupying the moon. Or we can go, because the Virgo, in the sign of Virgo, the moon is supposed to be at her feet. The moon is not currently at her feet. The moon was supposed to symbolize the woman's footstool. That's where it was supposed to be. We saw her getting cast down from her throne in Lamentations 2 as the glory that lost her seat of power when he accused her falsely and stole what did not belong to him. So she gets cast down. He then has a footstool, which is technically the moon, but now Earth is at the moon's feet, because the powers of darkness, man, wicked man, Satan the accuser, has now took possession of her throne of power, which is the moon. From there, he then begins to dictate what kind of light, what kind of word, what kind of law will be taught on earth. So then that takes us to the Shulamite, saying, look not upon me. The false light has shone upon me and made me dark, made me black. That also means to mourn in the spirit, right? But my own vineyard, how does it go? My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own vineyard, my own come from when his law is the law that begins to rule. Man in love with himself. In love with himself and his own image. I was a little bit confused on that. She was supposed to be the light of the world. He became the false light of the world. So he became, Lucifer means light. It's not really light. It was a hate. It was a hateful light. It was a hateful anger that he's now in control of, because he's took her throne of power, which is in all sense this moon, the moon. So when you go in and you ask, okay, well, where does the moon, um, you know, revolve around the earth, right? At what portion does it revolve around the earth? Because what I come to realize is that earth in symbology in the heavens represents Virgo, which is why we go to Revelations 12, right? And I don't have Revelation 12 pulled up. Leave that one there. So you just a second here. And what does it say in Revelation 12? If I can read it. Um, so, was it 12? Or was it 10? I'm in Hebrews, that's why. Oh, that's why it's not making sense. Okay, we'll get there. There it is. Okay, Revelation 9, 10, 11, 12. It's interesting. We get the angel, the strong angel, and then in 12 we get the woman, right? And a woman gives birth not to a son, she gives birth to her daughter this time. A strange thing is seen in the earth, a woman shall encompass a man. Yeah, he's my head. Nope. Now it gets to be not so strange. A woman shall encompass a woman, her own head. Wisdom. She'll start to do her own thinking. The weird thing seen in the earth was when he took charge of her house and she actually began to capitulate to the lie. Yeah. That's what's going on. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he is a woman that can give life? Do we not understand the figurative language of the spirit? That's what you were told to understand. And most are failing the test miserably. So for full moon in this verse, in Job 26, it is throne, seat, chair. And we can't, if my computer will move, properly covered. A throne as a canopied, a seat, a stool, a throne. We'll keep going. Authority, official seat. It was hers. And we saw the glory that cast down to the earth in Lamentations 2, and it's identified as the branch, daughter Zion. Sion means branch, and it's the branch of the mother out of the tree of life, right? She gets cast down to the earth. We see King Solomon getting a footstool made for him. Then we bring in the ritualistic aspects of what was going on with kings like Solomon. And then we see in Revelations 12 the moon at her feet. And so Virgo symbolizes that, right? Virgo is a picture of Earth in a larger telling of the story. And the moon is supposed to be at her feet because she is the queen. She is the rightful ruler of the house. And when she takes possession of her own womb that the children come out of and not hand them over to him and his lies, then she's able to produce truthful witnesses, right? Yes, they can testify to the Ancient of Days known as Wisdom, your mother. And so in Revelations, I still ain't got the right bulb in that. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. But she gives birth to the daughter. We've proved this. I don't. For those who actually watches the videos from beginning to end, and trust me, I know how difficult that is to do. I'm not an easy watch. I'm not a pretty watch. I'm not a fancy watch. I don't offer any pretty pictures and little videos to go along. I wish I could. I do. But I recognize how hard it is. And when I've put the many hours into the studies that I have and the many videos with all the answers that I have, and somebody comes on and asks a question that is clearly in many other videos, I know that they didn't watch them. And I know, again, it's difficult to watch these videos. But you have to understand, when I began studying, I read some dry material that took me hour upon hours to read through it just to find a sentence that would enlighten me in some way. Hour upon hour upon hour. And people can't watch an hour-long video with the answers that came by way of years of hard study. So their ears are stuffed up. You're supposed to want to search and try the spirit. You're supposed to want to weigh up with yours. And if you're that strong in your faith, then watching an hour-long video here and there to educate yourself a little bit shouldn't hurt your faith any. But you were warned that you would be caught in a snare and that you wouldn't be able to come out of it. And when the witnesses show up, that you will not want to hear them. And we're here. It says the Spirit will come in like a thief in the night. You know why? Because nobody's listening. You've been told so many things, and you can't be bothered to hear them and reason them out. And we've stumbled. You stumble when you're climbing. Don't tell me you don't stumble. It's a bad time to stumble, but you're going to do it anyway. Sometimes you're even going to have to fall back a little bit, but you keep pushing forward. And I don't care how many times they want to mock me, they want to make fun of me. I have the truth. And I have my sword sharpened for an answer when the Lord calls me. Do you? You know what you're going to blather on? Jesus died for me and I'm washed in blood. And you know what mother's going to do? She's going to look at you and go, since when does blood wash you? We answered that one. Nobody wants to hear them. A very few. Because it hurts. Pride. That pride gets you every time. So, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. We're going to skip that. And we're going to go down to, and she brought forth not a son, it was a daughter. The world ain't going to hear it. Don't want to hear it. A female child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. We understood what all of that meant. I'm not going to tell you. If you care, which I suspect most don't at the time, to rule with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to her throne. Now we understood that. Who shall ascend into my holy hill? Not he with clean hands, she with clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted herself up to vanity. You know what vanity is there? Male idols. You know who we found with clean hands? I'll tell you this much. The Shulamite. This is the pure one of the mother. Songs 6:9. She is the spirit that was to rule in the earth, and the king there will be crowned with her as the sovereign. She represents the crown and the scepter. And the only one that crowns him with it is Mother Wisdom. It's the mother there. But you understand she's also identified as a sovereign. We get the number 136. I had a sister ask this. I never answered it because we did this study a long time ago. Go look at Psalm 110. You'll find 3 lords sitting on 3 thrones there. You've got 3068. You've got 113. And to his right, you've got the branch and the sovereign who will strike through enemies, thrones in the day of her anger, her wrath. And you know why she's angry? You can't tell, can you? Look around this world at what man's law and man has done to womankind with his religious lie and idols of man as God. The host and creation comes out of her womb, and as such, she was the one who had authority over the law. But because man had so much bloody pride, he couldn't receive the law off of her tongue. And so he chose to strike her in pride, in arrogance. And he even accused her falsely. And she goes silent. We see the woman going silent. She says in Isaiah 42, Long time have I held my peace. Long time have I been restrained. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will destroy and I will devour you at once, your lies, Adam. I will set the case in order. I will set the proverbs in order. I will show you the little book sealed that you don't want to hear about. So, should feed her there. Prevailed. I'm looking for the verse. I should have looked at where the moon was at her feet. I can't find it. Let me look here. So the wilderness where the woman flees technically is earth under man's rule. That's the wilderness where she fled to. When she begins to stand up for her children, bring forth nations that hearkens to her law, we get true witnesses, right? Oh, what was I going to say now? But we have the throne here established as innocent, the full moon. We get the upside down that they talk about in allegorical terms, and the signs that most of those who's in such heavy idolatry worshiping idols are reading the signs of the Antichrist, the spirit of the Antichrist. Those are the signs that they're reading. But the deeper symbols they dismiss. They don't want to see them. They don't want to. They don't want to realize the feminine aspect has a real role here to play. And so we get that idea of the upside down. You turned everything upside down. You told the potter, the maker, the creator, she had no power over her own children. We established Mount Sinai, where the law, the dispensation of man's signs, desolate due to our children of the desolate spirit. Then if she who has a husband, she who has a husband is Baal. Beelzebub is another name for Satan, and Baal is a name of your husband. It's also a name of the dung. Began to spill dung at you. We get the women who are covered in this dung. That's the exact word that they use. Look your words up. Mother says, I will wash the filth and blood off of my daughters in Isaiah 4:4. That word for filth is human excrement. And that's an important word because it leads you back to the dung god Baal in the Old Testament. And Baal is another name for your husband. Beelzebub is a name for Satan, the man who exalted himself to her throne. And we get a throne here mentioned as the full moon covered with a cloud, with clouds. Those are nations, his nations. And so, I see, I forget my train of thoughts so quickly. But what was I going to say? Yeah, okay, so we'll go back to 136. I'm sorry, I'm back and forth on so many thoughts in my mind. It's hard to keep the focus on just one thought here. But Isaiah 1, the name and number 136. When we're looking at figurative language, and that's what we're looking at to break down the truth and to understand why our world fell into the mess that it is currently in right now. And when we go to Psalm 68, she is seen as the Lord that was burned to an ash heap. She was the spirit, the true spirit of Adam, man's covenant, was burned to an ash heap. And we understood all of that allegorical language. We're not going to discuss it right now. But the Lord there that is burned to an ash heap, who will rise out of the dust of the earth, we're told in passages like Isaiah 29, and her wings will be covered in gold and silver, allegorized as a dove there, really. That's the Holy Spirit. And her number is 136, and she is the Lord of Lords. And Lord of Lords is 136, the Holy Spirit over him. 113. Why? And we don't mean over him like a dictator. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the love of man who is in love with her law. All right? He ain't the ruler over the earth and the head of the woman. He's not. That's a lie out of Satan's backside. Baal, dung. Zebub means flies. Right? Baal-Zebub, a name of Satan. It links you back to your husband who told you a pile of lies and you fell for it. And you will be washed by the waters that she provides in Isaiah 55. She says, come to my waters freely. We see those waters welling up in Song of Songs 4, 12 to 15, and they flow down from Lebanon. We identified the house in the forest of Lebanon. You've got to pick up your allegorical language, your figurative language, to build your case against the lawyer who's sitting on the throne, her throne. Then from there, I think it's Isaiah 28. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Isaiah 28. You go there to the priests who are there getting drunk on wine, the admixture of lies. The Lord says there, 136 says it. She does. She says, now I'll awaken like a Lord that's been drunk on wine. We've done this verse, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times. We've been over the verse many, many times. She says, now I will awaken like a Lord. 136 has been drunk on wine. What does Habakkuk do? Second Habakkuk? No, Habakkuk 2 or 3. I think it's 2. 15 and 16, he put drink to her lips and got her drunk so he could what? Expose her nakedness. You know what that means? Take control of her womb and get the production of children under his 666 doctrine. Go back to King Solomon. We did multiple studies on him. We've got videos up on 666. And what does it say? The priest got drunk and spewed vomit over the table. Yeah. You know what the word for vomit there is? Human excrement, which you find over the daughters. So what's the Red Sea allegorized as? The admixture of lies. It was the presence of God, she, the Holy Spirit, sent from above. I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? For what portion of God is there from above? The Spirit that was sent to give you the mother's law, wisdom's laws over her creation, the children that come from her womb. She laid out the heavens. She filled the heavens with her seed. And he struck her. He struck the woman. And he did it because of his pride. Satan sitting on her throne, but he falls. Is this the man who caused the nations to tremble? Daughter Zion, take off the yoke off of your neck and take back your throne. What rightfully belongs to you? That's Satan's seed, man's seed, the accusing seed against the woman's seed. Yet more are the children of the desolate spirit than of she who has a husband. Sinai, where the dispensation of the law came from, means a desolation. And it was the spirit that was becoming desolate, the spirit of the righteous woman whom man rejected because of pride. We see him taking her throne of power. And Obadiah 1 says, he moves amongst the stars. You're being watched. Can you imagine how powerful you are when you have technology at your fingertips that has been held back off of us, the earth? They are watching every move we make, everything we do, and they're manipulating everything to the advantage of Satan sitting on his throne. They can watch you. They watch us. from where we are. We're a 3D creation, is what they say. We can only see in 3D then. How all that works, I haven't fully comprehended it. Is it truly physical that he's sitting there, or is he sitting there in another way? And I'm sure many people has many answers. Go here, and I'll find it eventually. If I search long enough, I will find it. But we know there's a nations that cover the moon. It just told us in Job. In the allegorical language, we have understood what it means. Nation means the cloud here. His nations. When he put between light and darkness, the upside down, as the womb, she became the womb of Sheol. We see not Job, we see Jonah saying, please, Lord, save me from the womb of Sheol. When you teach your child to bow to idols, you bring them to death. That is Sheol. That is the grave. That is not Hades. Hades, they tell us, is burning. That's a Greek contrivance, a furtherance of his lies that causes the nations to shake and quake. Is this the man? Yeah, this is the man, the accuser from the beginning, who wrote a pile of dung, a pile of lies. But they will be astounded at her rebuke. Isaiah 55, Psalm 55. I always say Isaiah. Psalm 55. Allow me to set the case in order. And as the role of the Qoheleth, that is what the role of the Qoheleth, the female assembler, was to do. Set her case, their case, in order. So the foundations of heaven quake, astounded at her rebuke. How dare you? They're astonished at it. Whatever you do, folks, don't bring in wisdom. Don't bring in understanding. Don't bring in learning, knowledge. Nah. You're supposed to play his fool. God does call you fools. Yep. I will laugh in the day of your calamity. You brought it on yourself. But he stole her throne of power, which, according to this, is the full moon, which is water, right? Her waters. She was the one who was to control the waters, the tides on earth, in a sense that it's all interconnected. And then we get the Psalms of degree as the Shulamite slowly returns back. And the full moon is supposed to be at Earth's feet. Earth is representative of the symbol of Virgo in the heavens. And in that passage in Revelations where it says the moon is supposed to be at her feet. So when we read, I did pull this up. Can I find it? I don't know if I can actually read it. Yeah, the moon orbits the Earth in a prograde direction, meaning it moves forward in its orbit. It does not orbit beneath or above the Earth. So, in this symbology of Virgo, with the moon at her feet, Virgo is, from all intended purposes and understanding in the figurative language, represented by Earth. All right, the moon is supposed to be, and I don't know what that scientifically would look like. The Earth is supposed to, the moon is supposed to be at her feet, not above, circling here, where it supposedly does, but it's supposed to be under. And that takes us to the Psalm of degree. She lost her power in the Psalms of degree. But in, like, it's telling us how she lost it. The Psalms of degree is her ascent back to the mother. What does it mean to ascend into the heavens? Well, if we look at it, we've got third, second, and first heaven. We're said to dwell in the first heaven. For all intended purposes, outer space is second heaven. And third heaven is where God is said to dwell. So if she's to ascend, then she's got to ascend and turn back to the mother. That's understanding how the heavens work. So we got a psalm of degree, a slow turn back. So something's got to change in our orbits. Something has to change. And we're told it in Revelations that the moon has to be at her feet, because she was the rightful ruler of the moon, the full moon, the moon, the waters on earth. And then as such, she influences the light that shines. When he got control of her throne, and we can bring in Sennacherib as well. Oh man, if I try to touch that, sin, what does the meaning of Sennacherib? We studied Sennacherib. We studied all of these Old Testament kings who was trying to put in play man as God, the image of man as God. And that's precisely what we see these kings building on in Daniel, to a male image, right? Then we get the threat by the king, if you don't bow to me, we're going to burn you in the furnace. Yet they didn't burn because they didn't bow. So we get the Hades idea coming, the Greeks come into play, and they just develop that idea. So there's so many things that we have to be looking at and taking into account. It's really hard to do it in one lifetime, but we are expected to do it in a lifetime. And here we are at the end, maybe. And the Christians, I know because I was in the churches, we were warned that in the end, it would just about be impossible. It would be just about impossible to see the lie. That it was going to take really wise women. And you know, the reason why you're considered holy and set apart, typically these breakthroughs aren't going to come to people in groups. You're going to have to be a strong individual, set apart in your own little place of the world. And you're going to do this climb. Most of the time, we're going to do it on our own. That's why God calls us the strong ones. That's why she calls us her strong daughters, the ones that will persevere, and the ones with a tenacious spirit. You've got to have tenacity on this. You've got to be willing to pursue the truth against what everybody else is telling you. You've got to have that in you. And that's what causes perseverance to happen in the spirit with you. But that's also, we're set apart. We're spotted here and there. There's not a lot of us. There's a few of us, is the idea. And you're going to have to be strong in here. And you're going to have to be wise and knowledgeable and have an understanding that most don't have. You're chosen because of that, I think. And you're strong because you pursue it even though you are alone to pursue it. Though you are set apart alone to pursue it. We're not usually doing it in groups. Do you know how hard it is to find another human being who thinks like me? And I have a sister and a mother, and they still don't quite get it, I don't think, most of the time, how important this truth is to me. And I'm sure there's things that they would want me to understand that I don't. So I don't mean it that, I just mean, if you're going to do this, be prepared to do it alone. Don't expect a pat on your back, because you're not going to get a pat on your back. Nobody's going to pat you on the back for it. Nobody. Guarantee you that one. You might get a few nice compliments, and I thank my precious sisters for that. But you know as well as I do, wherever you're from, pursuing this truth, that people don't like you for pursuing it. And that's the warning that you were gave. That this lie was going to be so hard that it was going to take a very very wise, strong, tenacious one to pull away from it. And I was warned that. And it's funny, it was like this double-sided warning. And yet they'd say, but don't worry, you've got Jesus. Right? How many's got Jesus in their hearts? How many? Millions. Billions, they tell us. Billions. Not so hard, I guess. Not so hard. So be prepared to be alone. Be prepared to understand that you're going to have to hang tight on your truth. It says, when I show up, it'll be to your great glory and to their great shame. They can think they're smart. Let them think it. They can think they're special and, queens. I don't know how many different queens I've encountered. They're the queen of this, they're the queen of that. That's okay. Whatever. Not really jealous. I don't think I'd want to be a queen number one. No, thank you. I don't want to be a bride of Christ. No, thank you. The anointed one was clearly identified in the Old Testament as she. So if you're a bride of somebody, then it's her, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying? No. I'm saying the covenant was that you hearken to the spirit of the mother's law, our mother that gave birth to every last single one of us on this planet. And you know what? To date, you can't prove otherwise. But he's manipulating, but he gets cast down from there at some point, somehow. And there's a real method behind it to be discovered. Just like we've discovered the Psalms of Degree, the moon, the sun, and how that really all worked out and how it looked like. So I think I've talked way too long. And I really felt it important that we discuss the thrones that they talk about, but really don't give too much indication. But where to ascend? Where to ascend? Yeah. In the Psalms of Degree. It's about the slow return, O Shulamite. What might we see when the Shulamite returns, as it were, the company of Mahanaim, God's camp? Double camp. One camp, 72,000, a double camp's 144,000. Though we're told there's about 7,000 that gets killed in the quake. That tends to go along with the 7,000 that have not bowed their knee to Baal, to the image of Baal. In Romans chapter 11, we know the ones who waken there are female elect. We've studied that too. We have much proof, we have much evidence. And it's the little book that is sealed up. And it's wisdom's book that far predates the accusations of the man 6,000 years ago. So we've discussed it all. It takes time to learn things, I know that. It's taken me 15 years. Wasn't an easy climb, and yet people can watch one video and say, you're wrong. I don't care. I'm prepared to prove my case, and I have. And I can. I've sharpened my sword. You know what? Yours has got dull. You can't even be bothered to listen, to weigh up the truth. You can't be bothered to weigh it up. Your ears has the idea of scales to weigh up what you hear. They've made you afraid to hear. And yet you were warned in the end that their lie would be so great. Satan's lie, Adam's lie, fallen man's lie would be so great that you would not be able to get out of the ditch. Yeah. So here you are, hating on the witness of the Spirit sent from God to teach you the truth in women like me. Anyway, well, almost 60 minutes, right on. So thanks for being here. I hope you are blessed with an abundance of truth. And I hope you've all had a lovely day. It's turning into the evening here now, moving along. The winds are blowing today outside. We've had rain, very warm. Uh, like we just went through a really freezing, bitter cold stint, -12 weather, very, very cold. And now it's warmed right up. Like it's nice. I like it. Don't like the wind, but I like the warmth. So, anyway, thank you again for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. Hope you've had a lovely day. And thanks again.